Okay, we got this field opened up and we're moving here. Phil's running cart for me until we get a truckload anyway. We'll see. So in my history tells me that 30-inch rows planted early can yield just as good as our 15-inch rows, unless we have a drought. Dry years are where I see that not always be the case, and we've had a dry year, so we'll see. We did a lot of end rows, so it's hard to judge anything now, but it says 53, so that would tell us, if that holds, that yeah, these weren't quite as good. But we have several things going on in this field. Well, I shouldn't say several. We have a few things going on in this field, though. One, we're 30-inch rows versus 15s. So there is that. Two, this is the field where I have my heads-up trial. And if you'll look at our background map here, you'll see the different colors. The brown streaks got heads up. The pinkish purple streaks did not. Now, most of the rest of our fields did get it, so these will be better comparisons to what we've already done. And I didn't see a ton of white mold this year, but we might have had some white mold, and we'll see if it shows up as any difference or not. I did remember coming out here around Labor Day and saying, hey, there's a little white mold out here. So it wasn't bad. Not nothing like we've fought in the past, but there was definitely some. So, what else? Yeah. We'll see how their 30-inch rows impact stuff, I guess. But beans are dry. These are 2315s. This was the first field I planted. So we're not going across the rows now because I can keep my divider point right in between the rows. We're not running any beans down with our divider point, and also it keeps my data pure for comparing planter passes. We can make sure that our splits follow the rows and we don't have that angle and the overlap into different soybean treatments or whatever, you know. So it just keeps everything more clean. A little strip here. This is a kind of a row of shame. It's because we were curving around the woods there, and I'm trying, like I said, stay on the planter rows. So here is the first pass with the heads-up seed treatment on it. See, we're in the brown now on our screen here, and it'll be interesting to see if we notice any difference. I sort of doubt that it will be noticeable, but here's the thing about some of these products and seed treatments, especially in the soybeans. This heads-up product is relatively cheap. It is a seed treatment that I add as a seed dealer to the beans, and it is supposed to help mimic the plant's natural defenses to make it more robust and be able to withstand attacks from different diseases, things like white mold, which is my primary concern and use for it, SDS, among other things. It's much cheaper than a specific SDS seed treatment or other thing, but it does cost something, and so you have to decide whether or not that cost is worth it. Well, how do we do that? Well, we take the cost, which for me and my customers is $4 a unit. Well, $4 a unit is pretty cheap in the grand scheme of things, right? Because while when you add that onto your seed cost, you think, ouch, that hurts. But when you look at it in a cost per acre perspective, if we're planting 1 unit per acre, that's $4 an acre. Well, bean price right now is about $10, roughly, give or take, but about $10. So it's less than half of a bushel per acre to add this. So did it make a half a bushel per acre difference out here? Can you tell that looking at the yield monitor? I can't tell that. I mean, right here they're running 60, 70, look at that, 74, 64. But it jumps around so much that to say that this pass was a half a bushel or say 1 bushel better than that pass is extremely hard to do just looking at these numbers. Now, what we will be able to do is go back into the computer after we're done with harvest and highlight these different strips and varieties, take out the end rows and the junk data, and then say, all right, in a block of 20 acres, did this overall do better than this block of 20 acres that didn't get the treatments? And that's where we're going to make our determination. It's not here in the field. And so while I would love to say on this yield map up here that we're watching, like all of a sudden the colors changed and there's a huge yield difference, we're not going to see that. We were never, ever going to see that. I have just a few minutes here before I kind of want to go home, so trying to fill a little bit more video for you. I thought of something. The other day we ran a bean field where we did a heads-up trial, and I told you that we needed to analyze it later on the computer. We can't really see it from the yield monitor. Well, it's later, and I'm at a computer. Let's analyze it. I'm going to do this the lazy YouTuber's way of filming my screen rather than doing a screen record, because then I would have to get it off of this computer, and that's just not fun for me. So here is our planting map. The blue areas got the heads-up treatment. The yellow areas did not. Here's our harvest map. Now, as we look at that, can we see anything? Well, we've got a green strip here. We've got some green over here, but it's hard to really draw anything from that. So we can do some data analysis. If we look down here at the bottom, we have our varieties listed. Heads up, not heads up, and then unavailable, whatever. That was 1/10 of an acre. We're not going to worry about that. So we had 36.9 versus 40.3 acres. And if you look there just at the raw data, 64 bushels per acre where we put the heads up, 60 where we did not. That's a win. That's a 4 bushel win on a product that cost me a 1/2 bushel per acre. Hold up, though. Hold up. You'll notice the perimeter of this field is all yellow. Well, not all of it, but most of this perimeter. End rows don't count. So let's get rid of the end rows. Let's pull up a selection box, and we're just going to kind of go through, highlight basically everything that's not perimeter of the field. We'll even cut some of that off. Something like that. So now it's going to give me the results just from inside that zone. Okay, this is also interesting. So I completely did that looking at this map, not the yield map over here. So I was just trying to isolate out, things that would have been affected by trees, by the end rows, that stuff. We don't want that in our data. So we just selected basically through the middle of the field. Now we come down here and look at our data. In our heads up area, we have 30.6 acres. In our untreated, we have 20.5. So the acre split isn't the same, but that's okay. But 65 to 61, it's still a 4 bushel advantage. Okay, that tells me something. That tells me that even in this year with a very light white mold pressure, our heads up treatment, it looks like it performed. Now we can dive into this a little bit deeper still and highlight block to block and smaller squares on here and see. But I took the variability out of it, or the junk data, I guess, and just looked at the main part of the field, and, well, that data's there. That tells me something. As we do a little more of that deep diving, so I highlighted in this area here. So important note about this farm, so there's a house lot here. We have farmed basically from behind this woods, about right here to somewhere in the middle of this blue, down to this house lot, for years, like since the early 80s. We bought the farm that goes around it about 10 years ago, and it was CRP for 20 years. And you can still see that here, that there is a yield difference from the stuff that we had been farming longer to the stuff that was CRP forever. That's gotten less pronounced as we've gone and been farming it for longer, but there's always been a big yield difference. So this, it's in a little bit of both of those spots, but it's not over the line. So we highlighted about half and half. What do we got? 5.6 versus 6.9 acres, 61 to 59. That's not as much, but it's still a win. If we move our box over here into the part that is newer for us to farm and exclude all of the older stuff, and we keep that 50-50 split here, we're 7.6 versus 6.1 acres, 68 versus 66. It's still that 2 bushels. So in this field with that test, shows that it worked. Now I've been using the heads up on our farm for several years because, again, if it does anything against white mold, it's worth it. It's not very expensive. And so for me, it just kind of makes sense to do that. This is the first time I've ever done a real solid test, semi-replicated here with different strips to be able to look at it and say, yeah, that worked. And when you look at the whole farm, you see 4 bushel. When you highlight or exclude end rows and boundaries, you see 4 bushel. When we highlight out a couple of blocks, we see 2 bushel in different spots, which means somewhere there's bigger differences. But trying to compare reasonably like area and stuff, I I think it works. I think it worked for us, and I will continue to use it.